With the game releasing in less than 2 weeks' time, various builds have been shown on the betas, and the potential for the different classes being seemingly limitless, it should be your priority to hit level 50 first. A lot of players already have it figured out as to what build they're gonna play in the endgame, but how to get there first. Today, I'll guide you through some of the best practices when it comes to build making, so no matter which class you decide on at launch, you'll be able to steamroll through the leveling process. Without further ado, let's get started. Even though it sounds like a waste of time, understanding what are your goals for the playthrough will heavily dictate what your build will look like. I can't guess what your plans are, so I'll use myself as an example. What do I want to do for launch? Well, I want to level to 50 as quickly as possible to transition to endgame build on day 1. I'll be leveling as a duo, so I want to fill in the gaps in terms of offensives and defensives. I want to avoid being a meta slave for content creation. I want to clear all PvE content smoothly up to level 50 with no exceptions. Now that we got our plans laid out, build making is kind of like making a cake. Layering different mechanics is fundamental if you want your build to perform and meet your expectations. For instance, if you want to work on your defensives, depending on the class, you'll have easier access to either fortify, barriers, health, armor, or percentage damage reduction. However, depending on the hit you take, having a single layer of defensives may not be sufficient to survive. Once you realize which mechanics are easily accessible to your class, you can start layering them on top of each other. Early on, for instance, all classes have easy access to barriers through Lost Archive Dungeon, giving us the aspect of the Protector. With Necromancers and Druids, capable of accessing Fortify early on, that's 2 layers already. And if you're a Druid and you add percentage damage reduction on top of it through Debilitating Roar, that's 3 layers of defensives that exponentially increase your effective HP. Now, conversely, same principle can be applied to offensive mechanics, but surprisingly, both offensive and defensive mechanics can be layered on top of each other. Take this Druid aspect for example, which increases your damage with cross skills when you're fortified by 40%. For this one, that grants +2 ranks to earth spells when fortified. Those are incredibly powerful mechanics as they allow us to scale both damage and survivability simultaneously at virtually 0 repercussions. Which brings me to my next point. What are the best practices to keep in mind while build making? For starters, don't reinvent the wheel, improve it. Going from a wooden carriage wheel to a modern car wheel, significant improvements have been made without reinventing the core concept. This is no different. Analyzing which uniques give what benefits, then comparing it against the mechanics already existing for the class, then seeing how many of them we can realistically layer on top of each other allows us to create a well-rounded, solid build even without spending hours upon hours of theory crafting and number crunching. Min-maxing a build, doing all the math, and more is extremely beneficial, but honestly, unless it's something that you truly enjoy doing, leave it to the more dedicated members of the community. However, a lot of these people do amazing work and provide a lot of remarkable resources for free at your disposal if only you're willing to look for it. Using that data to your advantage can be extremely useful if not build defining, but do keep in mind, just because somebody theory crafted a build capable of one-shotting any boss in the game at any stage of the game, it doesn't mean it's realistically usable or even recommended to do so. As such, I always recommend, don't overdo it. You have a finite amount of resources available at your disposal, and improving one aspect of your build may significantly hinder another. As such, you're looking to balance out the mechanics in a way that the build is capable of performing in any situation you want to use it in. For instance, if you're focused on damage, you become a glass cannon. Build will work great until you get hit. On the other hand, if you focus on survivability, killing anything tankier than a white mob will be a slug. Similarly, if you balance out the damage and the survivability, but forget to solve mobility issues, in the long term, it might feel extremely clunky to move through the game. You get the idea. Your build is only as good as its weakest perk. Lastly, I believe that iteration and improvement is often better than innovation. Take my Druid build for example. It went through a couple of variants and I'm fairly happy with the current iteration, considering its great balance of AoE clear, single target DPS, survivability, and relatively easy difficulty of play, albeit its mobility could be substantially improved. Consider this a call to action. I stand by my previous point of iteration over innovation, and as such, if you believe you can improve my build, I'd love to hear about it. I will soon be launching my Discord community server to create a forum where ideas, innovation, and resource sharing will be made available for you to explore and iterate upon. With that point bringing us to the end of this guide, I wanted to make it a case in point to be as broad as possible, as I didn't want this to be class specific. I hope that using the principles found in this video, you'll be able to create a build that will achieve all the goals you set out for it. With that being said, and nothing else to add, have a net use.